Okay, so what we are going to look at is multiple joins in a SQL statement. This is just a quick example of using multiple joins in a single query. And the tables that we're going to use is the employee table. As you can see, it has employee ID, department ID is a foreign key, first name, last name, and the start date. Then you have your department table. Department ID is your primary key, the department name, and the location ID is the foreign key. And then we have the location table, which has location ID as the primary key, the address, the city, the state, and the zip code. So if you see here, if you want to know the location of an employee, because it does not have the location ID in the employee table, you're going to have to make a jump from the employee table to the department table. Once you know what department they're in, which is really just a key that's the department and location ID, that primary key for department ID is the department and location ID. So once you know the department ID, then you can join the location table to get the address, city, state, and zip code for the employee. So let's go ahead and put that into practice. Here I have my SQL Server open already, a query window. We have our department table, which has the department ID, department name, and location ID as our foreign key. We have our employee table. The columns are employee ID, department ID, first name, last name, start date, and then we have our location table here. And if you look at the columns, you have your location ID, address, city, state, and zip code. And we will just do a really quick query on those. So we're going to select from our employee table. We have about 8 employees here. We have their start dates. We have their department ID, but we do not have their location. So if we want to know where they work, we need to find out from their department ID where they work. So in the department table, you can see there's a couple of IT departments, and they are in different locations. So we got our 1010, which is in location 10, but we don't have an address there. We have an IT department in our 20 location. We have human resources that is located in location ID 30. And then we have 3 sales departments here, 3010, 3020, and 3030, and those are in locations 10, 20, and 30. So if we look at our location table, there you can see our locations 10, 20, and 30, and we have a location in Atlanta, Miami, and Buffalo. So let's go back now to our employee table. So we want to get all employees. We have all of our employees, and we don't necessarily want their start date. We don't care about that right now. But we do want their department because we want to ultimately get to their location. So what I do is use an alias instead of fully qualifying all of the names. So this is our base table as employees. So I'm going to put an A for the alias there. And we want to left join that to our department table. And we're going to make that an alias of B. It's our second table. And you don't have to name this employee A and B. You can give it any alias you want. Some people might put the EMP as their alias. And then DEPT here. It's just a little more typing. So I normally just kind of use one letter. So we're going to name that A, and we're going to give this an alias of B. And we want to join that on a department ID. That's from the employee table, which has the department ID there. And we want to join that to our B department ID. And you'll see here that now we have this squiggly line here saying, hey, that's an ambiguous column because you have department ID in both your A and B table, so your employee and your department. So let's just say, okay, I want it from my employee table. So we'll give it an A. And if we run the query as is, it's going to come back with the same data minus that start date. But if we want to add in our, let's see what we have here, department name. So we want to know what department everyone works in. So we're going to put B, department name, And if it only resides in one table, you don't actually have to put the A or the B, like for department name, because it does not reside in the employee table. I don't have to put that there. It'll still run without it. So I can hit execute, and it shows the department that each of the employees work in. Next, we are going to get the location. So we cannot join location to our employee table. We have to join that to our department table. So we're going to do another left join on location. And we will give that a C as an alias. And we want to join that on B dot location ID. And remember, B is our department. And we have that location ID there. B equals C dot location ID. If we run it, it's going to give us the same data. We have to add in what it is we want to see from the C table. So we go back up to our select statement above the from and put in, we would like to see our C address. The city. The state, and the zip code. I have too many commas there. Let me take that out. Put it there again. Alrighty, and then we want the zip code. And hit run. I think I have too many commas again. There we go. So now you see the full statement, and here we're going to pull these from our location table, everything that has the C. So we want our address, city, state, and zip code. Again, because this doesn't reside in either of the other tables, you don't have to qualify. You might have just noticed that there when I didn't have the C in front of zip code, it still gave the same. It didn't give any errors. So we run it now, and we have the zip code, address, city, state, and zip code for each of our employees. So if you're in Department 1010, you are at 1010 Penn Street. If you're 2030, then you are at 5 Jackson Street. And then you have here at 3010, Department 3010 is also at 1010 Penn Street. And 3020, these are at the Miami and Buffalo departments. So I hope that helps out with a real world example of when you might use a double join on a table. It's usually done this way because you don't want to duplicate data in tables. So you might have this actually spread out like that. It's called normalization, and I believe we are going to cover that at a later time. So hopefully this helps.